Welcome to DepthCast, where powerful books become bite-sized stories to help you grow 1% every day. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the most influential personal development books of all time, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. But this isn't just a dry summary or list of bullet points. You're about to go on a journey through timeless human truths, delivered through real stories, sharp insights, and simple but powerful techniques that can completely transform the way you connect with others. Whether you want to make a stronger first impression, be more persuasive in conversations, become someone people truly trust and enjoy working with, this episode will give you exactly that. We'll explore why you should never criticize anyone, even when they're wrong, how remembering someone's name can change the course of a relationship, the science of smiling, how to win arguments by avoiding them, and how to become the kind of communicator that naturally draws people in. These are not gimmicks, they're foundational skills backed by psychology, proven in real life, and still relevant nearly a century after the book was first published. So grab a tea, take a breath, and get ready to learn the art of becoming a master communicator. Let's begin. What is this book about? With over 15 million copies sold, How to Win Friends and Influence People, first published in 1936, is considered a classic self-help book. Many famous individuals, from Warren Buffett to Lee Iacocca, consider the methods in this book to be one of the keys to their success. The examples and anecdotes in this book make the author's advice specific enough that you can easily apply it to your own life. Completely change the way you treat people with these powerful techniques. Who is this book for? For those who want to learn how to make a good first impression and be persuasive with others. Employees, managers, consultants, teachers, and anyone who frequently interacts with people. About the author Dale Carnegie, born in 1888, died in 1955, was an American speaker and consultant on communication and motivation. He organized public speaking classes in New York City until he realized that what students truly needed was a guide on how to communicate with people. Realizing that no book had been written for this purpose, he wrote one to use in his own courses. This work is considered Dale Carnegie's first and best book. What will you learn from this book? The art of becoming a master at communicating with others. You have difficulty making friends. You can't defend your personal opinion when arguing and are easily overwhelmed by others. You don't know how to improve your relationships with co-workers and customers. Don't look elsewhere. How to Win Friends and Influence People is the book for you. This book covers several techniques that help us communicate effectively with friends and build influence. By applying these specific and simple techniques, you'll develop a professional style and become a likable, influential, and more effective leader. Through this book, you'll find out: why shouldn't you criticize others? How can someone remember the names of 50,000 people? And how to get people to like you at first sight. If you want people to like you, never criticize them. Famous test pilot Bob Hoover was flying back from an air show in San Diego when suddenly both of his aircraft's engines failed. Thanks to his experience, he was able to land and save the people on board. Unfortunately, the aircraft was severely damaged. The incredible cause of the engine failure was that the plane had been mistakenly filled with jet fuel. Back at the airport, Hoover met the mechanic who had made the mistake. The young man was in tears, terrified upon realizing Hoover had lost his expensive plane and that a tragic accident had nearly occurred. So, did Hoover scold or criticize him? The truth is, not at all. Hoover even let that same mechanic perform maintenance on his plane the next day. The reason for Hoover's compassion was discovered long ago by the brilliant psychologist B.F. Skinner. People who are rewarded for good behavior work more effectively than those who are punished for bad behavior. Criticizing others will not make them change their behavior because they are not driven by logic, but mostly by emotion. As a result, the person you criticize won't really listen to what you're saying. They'll only feel like they're being attacked, and their natural response will be to fight back. So, criticizing others may help us release temporary anger. But in the long run, it will make the other person like you less. Many truly successful people have developed the habit of never publicly criticizing others. For example, Benjamin Franklin claimed that the secret to his success was never saying anything bad about anyone. Abraham Lincoln also learned this lesson. He had once publicly criticized his opponent, until one day that criticism almost led him into a sword duel. The duel was only called off at the last second, and from then on, he stopped publicly criticizing others. Even during the Civil War, he told people who were deeply resentful of the South, "Don't criticize them. They are doing what we would do if we were in the same situation." Criticizing someone is easy, but we must try to understand and forgive their mistakes and shortcomings. So, if you want others to like you, think about why they act the way they do, accept their flaws, and adopt the rule of never publicly criticizing them. If you want others to support you, frequently show your appreciation for them. One of the strongest motivators of human behavior is the desire to be appreciated by others. All of us like to be praised and to hear that we're doing a good job. Some even say that all of civilization is ultimately based on the human longing for recognition. It is this desire for recognition and praise that helps us conquer the highest mountains, write novels, or start million-dollar companies. No one is immune to this deep yearning for importance and appreciation. Even George Washington once tried to earn the grand title of President of the United States. But you don't have to give someone a fancy title to show your appreciation. Just use simple phrases like thank you and sorry, and give sincere and honest compliments. Don't give people fake flattery, they'll see right through it. Instead, stop focusing so much on yourself and pay attention to the strengths of the person in front of you. Also, make sure your actions make the other person feel important. To develop the right mindset, try thinking like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who always believed that every person he met was superior to him in some way. So there was always something to learn from them and to appreciate about them. Or apply the golden rule. Treat others the way you want others to treat you. So next time you see a service worker who looks tired or down, maybe just scolded by a manager or a customer, try lifting their mood with a compliment or sincere thank you for their service. For example, the author once wanted to cheer up a postal worker who looked sad and tired. He complimented her hair. Surprised by the compliment, the postal worker's face instantly lit up, and she began chatting happily. You'll be surprised how positively people react when they feel their desire for recognition is fulfilled. Soon you'll become someone others enjoy being around and working with. And more than that, you'll make a positive impact on the lives of the people around you. If you want to make a good first impression, smile. A stockbroker in New York named William P. decided to try something new, based on the author's advice. Previously, he was known for being rude and rarely smiled. Then he made a commitment to smile more by practicing in front of the mirror. He started his day by smiling at his wife. Then he smiled at the doorman of his building, then at the subway ticket clerk, even at people on the trading floor and colleagues in the office. And the result? People started smiling back at him. He said he felt happier during the first 2 months of that experiment. More than that, at work, arguments became easier to resolve, and he got more sales than before. In short, he became a wealthier and happier person. This story shows that a smile can carry you a long way. When someone greets us with a smile, we tend to like them right away. So, if you want others to like you from the beginning, the first thing you must do is show them you're happy to meet them by smiling. Psychologists have also discovered the positive side effects of smiling. It seems the connection between positive emotions and a smile isn't one way. Smiling intentionally can lead to positive feelings, just as positive feelings can lead to a smile. A smile costs nothing, yet you can use it to lift your own spirits and those of others. Pretty good deal, right? If you want to smile more but can't, try other things. Whistle, sing, or hum a tune. Do the things you do when you're happy, and soon you'll start to feel happier. If you want people to like you instantly, remember their name. Jim Farley was the oldest of 5 children. To support his family, he worked in a brickyard. With only a basic education, Jim still managed to become the Postmaster General and chairman of the Democratic National Committee at the age of 46. So, what was his secret? He realized early on that the sweetest sound to a person is their own name. He made it a habit to remember everyone's name and personal information. When someone asked Farley if he really could remember the names of 10,000 people, he replied, "No, you're wrong. I can remember the names of 50,000 people and a few things about them." The ability to remember names and greet people personally makes others feel important. That's why President Theodore Roosevelt always remembered the names of all his White House staff, from gardeners to kitchen staff, and what they had told him in previous conversations. That was one of the reasons people loved him so much. So, how can you remember people's names more easily? Take a tip from Napoleon III, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte and Emperor of France. Every time he met someone, he would make sure to hear the name clearly. Repeat it during the conversation, write it down as soon as possible, and later repeat the name to himself several times when alone. You can also copy Dale Carnegie's method. Whenever someone gave him their name, he would associate it with a mental image or something memorable to help him recall it later. He also made it a habit to note down people's birthdays so he could send them cards or greetings when the day came. People really appreciated this personal gesture and remembered him fondly. In summary, if you want others to like you, remember their name. There is no sweeter sound to someone's ears than hearing their own name spoken with warmth. If you want to be interesting, become a good listener. Once the author attended a dinner party in New York and had a conversation with a botanist. Although the author didn't know much about the subject, he asked the botanist lots of questions and mostly just listened. After hours of conversation, the botanist happily told the host that Dale Carnegie was a wonderful conversationalist, but the author had barely said anything, he just listened. The secret to being interesting is showing interest in others. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. Even in a phone call, research by the New York Telephone Company showed that the most commonly used word was the word I. It was used 3,900 times in just 500 conversations. So, if you want to be liked, let others talk about themselves. Ask them about their interests. Encourage them to speak, and then truly listen. Unfortunately, most of us are so focused on what we want to say next that we hardly listen to what others are saying. And when we do talk, we often cut others off or steer the conversation back to ourselves. To be a good listener, you must truly care about what the other person is saying. Give them your full attention, show genuine interest, and let them feel heard. Psychologist Sigmund Freud was loved by everyone he spoke with because he gave them his complete attention. He listened so attentively, people would open up and share even their deepest feelings. People don't want to feel judged, they want to feel understood. And when you listen with sincerity, you build trust, respect, and connection. On the other hand, people who only talk about themselves, or worse, show no interest in others, will rarely be liked. They might be seen as arrogant, self-centered, or insensitive. If you want to win people over, ask about their lives, let them tell their stories, and listen like it matters, because to them it does. Talk about what the other person is interested in. Imagine this: you love strawberries, but when you go fishing, you don't bait the hook with strawberries. You use worms, because that's what fish like. This applies to human communication too. If you want to influence someone, don't talk about what you want. Talk about what they want. For example, Dale Carnegie once rented a ballroom in a hotel to give a 20-session lecture. Suddenly, the hotel raised the rental fee, tripling the cost. Instead of getting angry, Carnegie calmly wrote a letter to the hotel's manager. He listed the pros and cons of the price increase from the manager's perspective. He said the higher price might benefit the hotel in the short term, but they'd lose long-term exposure and free publicity from his lectures. The result? The hotel raised the price, but only by 50%, not 300%. Another example is Edward L. Shalif, a scout leader, who wanted to ask the president of a major company to sponsor one of his scouts to travel to Europe. But instead of diving right into the request, Shalif spent time researching the executive. He discovered that the man had once received a $1 million check, something he was very proud of. When Shalif visited the man, he didn't start with his pitch. Instead, he asked about the $1 million check. The executive lit up, told the story proudly, and even showed him the framed check on the wall. Only after they connected over the story did Shalif ask about sponsoring the scout. The executive didn't hesitate. He offered not just to sponsor one scout, but 5. Even President Theodore Roosevelt followed this principle. Before meeting anyone new, whether a cowboy, diplomat, or factory worker, he would stay up late reading about their interests, background, or field of work. That way, when they met, he could talk about things that mattered to them. This habit made people feel respected, valued, and impressed by how much he cared. So, if you want to make friends, influence people, or just have better conversations, talk about things that the other person truly cares about. And if you don't know what they care about, there's always one safe topic: themselves. As Benjamin Disraeli once said, talk to people about themselves and they will listen for hours. If you want to win arguments, avoid them. Patrick J. O'Hare, a salesman for White Motor Company, had a habit of arguing with customers. Whenever a customer complained about the quality of his trucks, he would jump in with facts and try to prove them wrong. In the end, he always won the arguments, but still lost the customers. After taking Dale Carnegie's course, he changed his approach. The next time a customer said they preferred a competitor's truck, O'Hare replied, "You're absolutely right. That competitor makes excellent trucks. I admire their products too." That surprised the customer and made them more open to continuing the conversation. O'Hare then gently shifted the conversation toward the features and strengths of his own trucks. The result? He became the company's top-performing salesperson. This example shows one of the most important principles in the book. You can't win an argument. Even if you defeat someone logically, you still lose because they now feel hurt, defensive, or embarrassed. You've made them feel inferior. They may resent you, resist your ideas, or avoid you in the future. As the author writes, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. That's why, instead of arguing, it's better to avoid debate altogether. Welcome disagreements calmly. Control your first emotional reaction. Listen sincerely. Look for common ground. Admit when you're wrong and do it quickly and clearly, and always thank the other person for sharing their thoughts. By doing this, you avoid triggering resistance and open the door to mutual understanding. It's not about winning, it's about preserving relationships. Never tell someone they're wrong. Young Benjamin Franklin was brilliant, but also arrogant. He loved proving others wrong, until one day a close friend gave him some advice that changed his life. His friend said, "You're smart, Ben, but no one likes being made to feel stupid. If you keep arguing like this, you'll have no friends left." Franklin listened. From then on, he stopped using phrases like, "Clearly you're wrong. That's completely false. Everyone knows that's not true." Instead, he started saying, "It seems to me that perhaps I'm mistaken, but let's look at this together and find out." This softer language didn't weaken his argument. It made others more open to listening. Because when you tell someone they're wrong, you challenge their intelligence, pride, and judgment. And when that happens, they'll fight back, even if they're wrong. But when you approach with humility and curiosity, people let their guard down and are more likely to reconsider their views. If you must correct someone, do it gently and start with praise. In 1896, William McKinley, then a US congressman, was running for president. At the time, one of his speechwriters gave him a draft for an important campaign speech. But after reading it, McKinley realized the speech would create controversy and possibly backfire. Still, he knew that the speechwriter was proud of his work and had poured a lot of effort into it. If McKinley rejected it outright, the man would feel humiliated, maybe even angry. But if he accepted the speech as is, it could damage the campaign. So what did McKinley do? He said something like, "This speech is great. You've worked hard on it. It would be perfect for another occasion. But for this particular event, I think a different tone would work better." The result? The speechwriter was not upset. Instead, he agreed to rewrite the speech, and the new version turned out to be even better than the original. This is the art of giving feedback without offending others. By starting with genuine appreciation and carefully choosing his words, McKinley corrected someone without damaging their ego or enthusiasm. That's how you build loyalty and cooperation, not resistance. Begin conversations in a friendly way. In 1915, John D. Rockefeller, the wealthiest man in the world at the time, faced a massive crisis. His coal company in Colorado was in the middle of a violent strike. People had been killed, the National Guard had been deployed, and Rockefeller had become one of the most hated figures in the country. When he finally met with the miners who had threatened his life, he didn't defend himself or assert authority. Instead, he started by smiling, shaking hands and saying, "I'm very happy to be here. I've wanted to meet you all for a long time." He asked about their families. He listened to their concerns. He treated them with respect and kindness. The result? The men went back to work peacefully. They didn't even bring up the raise they had originally demanded. Rockefeller's friendliness turned anger into calm. It healed tensions that force and authority never could. If you want to influence others, always begin in a warm, respectful, and sincere way. Even people who seem hostile at first will soften when they feel genuinely valued and seen as equals. Get the other person saying yes early and often. One of the most powerful ways to guide someone toward agreement is to start with questions that they're likely to answer with yes. That way, you build momentum towards shared understanding and trust. If you start a conversation with disagreement, the other person is likely to resist everything you say next. It's like slamming a door before the conversation even begins. But if you start by asking things you both agree on, the person begins to nod along, becomes more relaxed, and is more likely to agree later on. Example, Eddie Snow and the archery bow. Eddie Snow once walked into an archery store and asked to rent a bow. The clerk said, "Sorry, we don't rent bows." But instead of stopping there, the clerk asked Eddie a series of questions. "Have you ever rented a bow before?" "Yes." "How much did you pay for the rental?" "About $25 to $30. "Did you know we sell bows for just a little more than that?" "You'd actually save money in the long run if you bought one." As Eddie continued saying yes, he became more open to the idea of buying. In the end, he bought a bow instead of walking away empty-handed. That's the power of getting someone to say yes multiple times in a row. Each yes builds trust and softens resistance. Let the other person do most of the talking. Whenever you're trying to persuade someone or get their support, don't dominate the conversation. Instead, let them speak. Encourage them to share their thoughts, concerns, and ideas. Even if you already know the answer or believe you're right, let them talk. The more someone speaks, the more invested they become in the outcome. They feel respected and heard, which builds rapport and makes them more likely to listen to you in return. Let the other person feel the idea is theirs. People are far more committed to an idea when they believe it came from them, not from someone else. So even if you're the one planting the seed, do it subtly. Guide them with questions. Let them arrive at the conclusion on their own. If you push your idea too hard, they may resist, just because it wasn't theirs. But if you let them discover the idea themselves, they'll defend it, nurture it, and act on it. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. This is one of the most powerful tools in communication, empathy. Even when you disagree, make an effort to understand where the other person is coming from. What do they feel? What are they afraid of? What do they want? When you acknowledge someone's perspective, they feel validated. Their walls come down, and the path to influence opens up. Be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. People crave understanding. Even when they're wrong, they want someone to acknowledge their feelings. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," say something like, I understand how you feel. If I were in your situation, I would probably feel the same way. This simple shift shows empathy, and it calms the person's emotional response. It doesn't mean you agree, it means you care enough to understand. Once someone feels that you're on their side, they become far more open to hearing your point of view, appeal to nobler motives. Everyone wants to feel like they're doing the right thing, that their actions are moral, generous, or honourable. So, when you're trying to persuade someone, appeal to their higher values. Instead of saying, "I want this because it benefits me," try, "Doing this could help others. It shows leadership and fairness. This appeals to their self-image, the person they want to be." When people feel you're appealing to the best part of themselves, they'll listen more closely and act more willingly. Dramatize your ideas. Facts alone often aren't enough to convince someone. You need to present your ideas in a vivid, memorable way. For example, a dull statistic might be forgotten, but when you turn that statistic into a story, metaphor, or visual demonstration, people remember it. That's why salespeople use demonstrations, why great speakers use stories, and why strong communicators don't just say the truth, they show it. If you want your message to stick, make it come alive. Throw down a challenge. People are naturally competitive. They want to prove themselves, to rise to a challenge, especially if they believe it'll earn respect. So if someone isn't motivated by rewards or praise, challenge their sense of pride. Say something like, "I bet you could break the record for this." Do you think you could outperform last month's results? This taps into ambition. It becomes a game, and people love to win games. Conclusion. If you take just one idea from this book, let it be this. People crave appreciation. They want to feel heard, understood, and important. This book teaches us how to become a master in dealing with others. You don't need tricks, manipulation, or slick words. You just need empathy, patience, and sincerity. Start by avoiding criticism, giving honest praise, smiling, remembering names, letting others speak, seeing the world through their eyes, and above all, treat people with respect and kindness. These are timeless techniques. No matter how the world changes, these principles will always matter. Mastering human relationships isn't about controlling others. It's about connecting with them. That's the true art of communication. Thank you for reading this condensed book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Art of Becoming a Master Communicator. If this book sparked something in you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone on their growth journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep becoming 1% better every day.